just to see what is. Birds flying through my room. Slowly we unfold as long as flowers goes on as the moon upon a stair. A dancer around the pit. The darkness is
think so. We are going to start in just a moment. If you could take your seat. Good. All right, now that our leadership is in place, we can begin. Good morning. Good morning. See, that is the good morning of people who hung out too late last night. Good morning. Welcome to the official opening session of the 84th Annual Meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Let me first recognize our officers. Vice President Mick Cornett of Oklahoma City. And Second Vice President Mitch Landrieu of New Orleans. Our past presidents, Elizabeth Counts of Burnsville, and Kevin Johnson of Sacramento. Our host mayor, Mayor Joe Hogsett. Thank you so much. And our CEO and Executive Director, Tom Cochran. Please give them all a round of applause. And now that we are awake, I will ask you to please stand for the presentation of the colors by the Chief's Honor Guard of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, and please remain standing.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet
Please let us again thank the Honor Guard of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department and the Indianapolis Men's Chorus. Thank you so very much. Please be seated. The invocation will now be given by Pastor David Hampton, Deputy Mayor of Indianapolis.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning to everyone. It is certainly my great honor to render the invocation this morning in the greatest city in the world with the greatest mayor in the world. I may be a little biased, so forgive me. As a Christian, I greet you in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. To our Buddhist and Hindu friends, namaste. To our Jewish friends, shalom. To all of our Sikh friends, Sat Shri Akal. To our Muslim friends, Assalamu alaikum. Psalm 133 says, "Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together in unity." Shall we pray? Lord, we thank you for this gathering, not by accident, but by your divine providence. Lord, grant us provision for the least of these, provision for the left out, the locked out, the kicked out, the down and out, provision where there's poverty and food insecurity, provision where there's unemployment and depleted resources. Lord, grant us protection against the forces of evil and ignorance, protection against hate and injustice, protection against the temptation to merely tolerate our neighbor rather than love our neighbor as ourselves. Help us to love our straight neighbor, our gay neighbor, our black, white, and brown neighbors. Lord, grant us peace where the storms rage and the winds of uncertainty persist. And Lord, grant us perseverance to endure hardships and to never be defined by our deficits, but by our determination. And Lord, give us perseverance to never be defeated, but to know we have ultimate victory in all things. Let the church say amen. Let the church say amen one more time. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Hampton. I want to take a second to thank all of our sponsors of the U.S. Conference of Mayors 84th Annual Meeting, our title sponsor, Airbnb, Alliance to Save Energy, Amazon, American Water Resources, AT&T, Dentons, HDR Inc., International Association of Firefighters, J.P. Morgan Chase & Company, Linebarger, Goggin, Blair & Sampson, Lyft Inc., Mueller Water Products, Phillips, Uber Technologies, USA Funds, Walmart, Waste Management Inc., Walton Family Foundation, and Wells Fargo. Please give all of our sponsors a round of applause. I am now pleased to introduce our host for this meeting. Joe Hogsett attended our last winter meeting only a few weeks after his inauguration as mayor, and he is now hosting all of us this weekend just 6 months later. The mayor and his team have worked tirelessly in preparing for this annual conference, promising to show us the very best of his beautiful city. And he has already more than delivered. We are so fortunate to be here in Indianapolis for the next several days. I want to personally thank Mayor Hogsett for his work on our behalf. Mayors, please join me in welcoming Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett.
Good morning. So I overheard Tom Cochran say just yesterday to our president, wonderful president, Stephanie Rollins Blake, about me. Quote, he's a nice guy, but he talks too long. so I'll be brief. My name's Joe Hogsett, and I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm reasonably new, as the president has indicated, but if I can selfishly say so, I think that no one in this audience has had it harder than me. Sworn into the job on January 1 and tasked not just with taking leadership of our city, but doing so after 8 years of excellent leadership that has provided me a tough act to follow. Mayors, please join me in a special thank you to the person who is perhaps most directly responsible for all of you being here today, for providing me the big pair of shoes that I have to fill. Bring up the house lights and let's celebrate Mayor Greg Ballard. Mayor, he's in the back. I also heard Tom Cochran say yesterday, by the way, about Mayor Greg Ballard. He said, you know, Mayor Ballard was always short and sweet. "177 days, and thanks to all of you, literally, thanks to all of you, I haven't had a dull moment yet." You see, if you would have told me this time last summer, when I was campaigning for mayor, that exactly 1 year later I would be mayor, I would have smiled and been happy. And I probably would have said, praise God, I can finally stop asking people for money. If you would have told me this time last summer that exactly 1 year later I would be mayor and that 215 mayors were coming to town, I would have said, that's fantastic. But doesn't that mean I'm going to have to start asking people for money again? And that answer was yes. Yes, it does. And in the interest of full disclosure, I'll admit that if you would have told me this time last summer that exactly 1 year later I would be mayor and that 215 mayors were coming to town, and so were Bob Dylan and Jimmy Buffett, I probably would have said, I love the opportunity to spend time with all my fellow mayors. But I like mine with lettuce and tomato, Heinz 57, French fried potatoes. Are there people out there that remember Jimmy Buffett? Finally, if you would have told me this time last summer that exactly 1 year later I would be mayor and that 215 mayors were coming to town, and so were Bob Dylan and Jimmy Buffett and Justin Bieber and Iggy Azalea. By the way, who is Iggy Azalea? And that Lady Gaga would be in town to sit on a panel with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, I would have said that's enough. I would have then said, I suppose that the next thing you're going to tell me is that Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee for president. I say that in a completely nonpartisan way. Welcome to Indianapolis. In the coming days, we'll discuss new ideas. We will learn innovative, progressive approaches to vexing questions and hear from some of the foremost experts in our country in a variety of fields. What this weekend presents is an opportunity to push forward a newer and a broader consensus among American cities, an opportunity to continue and expand our place as part of an American government that works best. As I mentioned to many of you yesterday, Indianapolis is often known as the crossroads of America. But for the next 4 days, we all will be the crossroads of more than just cars and planes and trains at a time in which far too many layers of government are paralyzed by partisan gridlock. We are all sitting today in the nation's busiest intersection of ideas. And we have the potential to change the face of our country. Let us take advantage of this opportunity so that we may create more opportunity for the people that we've been elected to serve. Upon his election to the presidency, Indiana's Benjamin Harrison stood before our nation just 25 years removed from a civil war and still 75 years away from the passage of the Voting Rights Act. He spoke of the obligation we have as caretakers for our fellow human beings. He said, and I quote, "God has placed us upon our head a diadem and has laid at our feet power and wealth beyond definition or calculation. But we must never forget that we take these gifts upon the condition that justice and mercy shall hold the reins of power and that upward avenues of hope shall be free to all people of our nation." Friends, there are too many avenues of hope that remain closed for too many in the cities that we represent. Let us take advantage of this opportunity, this annual meeting, so that we may create more opportunity for those that we serve. And with that in mind, and with the work ahead in mind, with the challenges we face, not just as cities, but as a nation in mind, with issues as looming as climate change and child poverty, and as immediate as Flint and Orlando in mind, I humbly ask that we all recall the words of Dr. King. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of the now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. If we as a nation are to avoid the haunting, silent anonymity of those who arrive too late in history, it will be because we, the American city, brought a renaissance to American democracy by acting now, by dreaming big, and by governing relentlessly. Welcome to Indianapolis. I thank you.
All right. Thank you very, very much, Mayor Hogsett. I was there when Tom was talking about, but well, I'm just saying, I thought you were talking about Brainerd. I didn't know you were talking about Hunter. Sorry. Our title sponsor for this meeting is Airbnb, and I want to thank them for their support of this important gathering of America's mayors. With us today is Christopher Lehane, Head of Global Policy and Public Affairs for Airbnb. In this role, he leads Airbnb's work with policymakers around the world to support safe, effective home sharing. In the 1990s, Chris served in various positions in the Clinton administration, including press secretary to Vice President Al Gore, special assistant counsel to President Clinton, and counselor to HUD Secretary Andrew Cuomo. Please welcome Chris Lehane.
Thank you, Madame Mayor. I've learned recently that Baltimore is the number one, or one of the number one destination cities for millennials. And that has really happened under your leadership. Thank you for the tremendous leadership of this organization and for what you've done in Baltimore. And thank you, Mayor Hogsett, for those wonderful remarks. I stayed, I think I'm gonna get this right, in the near North Side neighborhood yesterday. I stayed at an Airbnb listing. I had a great host. I wanna assure you that I made the bed this morning, so I think I'm in good stead in the neighborhood. I can't attest what Izzy will do, but I certainly did my part. But really, I want to also recognize Tom Cochran. I hope he doesn't say anything about me after this presentation, given what I've heard so far. But he's been a legend who I've known for 20 some odd years, so thank you. The mayor talked about the Renaissance in America's cities. I really want to thank all the mayors out here for the leadership that you have demonstrated in bringing about that Renaissance. You have done it in the midst of enormous global change. And in fact, some of the changes that you deal with every day are in fact the changes that have led to Airbnb. You know them well. I will tick through them pretty quickly. But first, the nature of people are changing. For the first time since the 1920s, as many people are moving to America's cities as had moved to the suburbs. In particular, those are folks who are millennials. Those millennials now are the largest generation in American history as a cohort. By 2025, millennials, along with Generation Z and Generation Alpha, which are coming behind them, they'll constitute 75% of the population. 75% of your constituents are travelers, 75% of your voters are hosts and guests. And they're coming to the cities for a particular reason. They value experience. They value authenticity. They value realism more than anything else, particularly compared to the boomer generation, which valued materialism more. That's what's bringing them to the cities. Secondly, technology has changed. I mean, consider the fact that today in your iPhone, there's infinitely more computing power than in the Apollo 11 rocket ship that took humankind to the moon. What this means is that people are being liberated. In the same way that the car allowed earlier generations to connect, these devices are now allowing these new generations to be able to connect and network in ways that are really global in space. The way they work, the way they play, the way they network, the way they communicate, it's all changing. You see this every day in your cities. The third change, and Mayor Hogsett touched on this, is climate. You guys know all the stats. You're dealing with it every day since 1998. 15 of the hottest years on record. Last year, the hottest recorded. I was talking with the mayor of Phoenix yesterday about what they're going through, even over the last couple weeks. But what this is really leading to is an enormous focus and concern on sustainability, particularly among those millennials. You see it in bike sharing, in the community gardens that are taking place, in the ride sharing that you see, and certainly in home sharing, where there is an enormous focus on sustainability. Consider some of these stats. In terms of empty units in the United States, there's over 13 million empty units of housing. In terms of bedrooms that are not being used, there's over 33 million bedrooms in the United States that are empty. That is enormous waste in a time when people are really conscious of how can we live sustainable and sustainable lives. The fourth change that we've seen, obviously, is what's going on in the economy. We've moved from the industrial age into the information age. In fact, one of the reasons many people have been moving into cities is because cities are the center of innovation, the center of education, the center of art, the center of the creative class, and that's really drawing people in. Now, this was disrupted by the Great Recession in 2008. And we did a presentation last year with Gene Sperling, former economic advisor to Presidents Clinton and Obama, current advisor to Secretary Clinton, I think future advisor to future President Clinton. And he put together a study that showed that in terms of the stagnant economy, particularly given what happened in 2008, has led to a gap of about $7,000 between what everyday people are making and what they had expected to be making. This is a core part of the economic inequality challenge. And so you take all of those factors together, the fact that people are changing, the technology is changing, the climate is changing, the economy is changing. You put all that together, you get the catalyst of the 2008 economic dislocation, and you get the sharing economy. Now, the sharing economy is really bifurcated between two kinds. The first kind is what I would call shared labor. And that's when people are trying to make ends meet and they find ways to share their labor. I think ride sharing is a classic example of that. The second version is when they share capital, when they share assets that they have that are potentially being underutilized, undertapped, those 33 million bedrooms that I talked about. And Airbnb is a product of that, an example of that. In fact, it's how it was created. Our founders, two of our founders, were looking to make their rent in 2008 in San Francisco and decided to rent out a couple of air mattresses. And the money that they got from the air mattresses allowed them to stay in their apartment, and the light bulb went over their head. Well, this may be a good business idea. Soon we went from having air beds to couches, then to bedrooms, and then to houses, and now we have yurts, we have tents, we have tree houses, we even have castles in some places, and occasionally an igloo has shown up on the platform. And what has happened as a result is enormous growth since 2008. Today, we're in 194 countries. The three that we're not in are Syria, Iran, and North Korea. If there's any volunteers to go to North Korea as our first guest, please let us know. We're in 35,000 cities and growing, and we've had 80 million people travel on the platform in that 8-year period. The growth started with millennials. 75% of millennials between the ages of 25 and 34 use the platform. It's often their first option for travel. But it's not just millennials. Our fastest growing host cohort are women over 60. So we have this great dynamic of millennials traveling and staying in houses or bedrooms that are hosted by women over 60. They're often looking to supplement their income. They're on fixed incomes. They're trying to avoid reverse mortgages. Now, with this growth, obviously comes a responsibility. We understand that to continue to have these blessings, we need to do our part by cities and by our communities. That means, first of all, continuing to democratize travel. One of the core components of Airbnb is we generate economics throughout an entire city. We recently released a study in New York City that showed in the 30 zip codes that are the majority minority zip codes in New York City, it's the fastest growing part of our platform there, over 70% growth year over year. That's translated into $43 million being injected into those communities. A typical host in these communities is making about $6,000 a year. Secondly, and this is something I talked about to the conference in January, is generating revenue for your cities. We want to pay taxes. We're committed to paying taxes. We're doing a lot of partnerships with cities here to pay taxes. We want to do more of it. 85 million collected. We believe in the top 50 cities, you'd be able to collect $200 million a year. You can obviously bond off of that, projected over 10 years, that's $2 billion. And we want to do that. And then the third piece is continuing to address economic inequality by leveraging a home. The vast majority of our folks are everyday people. They typically host about 66 times a year. And this is an important data point. 97% of the money that they list their house for, they keep for themselves. We like to think of it as the democratization of capitalism. And what that translates into on an annual basis is about $7,500 a year. And if you remember that Gene Sperling study about that $7,000 gap, this actually helps address that. We're not the solution to economic inequality, but we can certainly play a valuable role in addressing it. Now, as we look forward, one other point I just wanted to make on this is we are releasing today a companion study to the earlier information that we put out, because we really wanted to know how our hosts were using this money. About half of our hosts, and we looked at 10 of the biggest cities in the United States, half of our hosts are using the money to pay for their basic needs, to make ends meet from month to month. And amongst that group, we know that 13% actually depend on the money, the $7,500 that a typical host makes, to be able to avoid evictions and foreclosures. And so in the 10 cities that we looked at, that translates into about 16,000 people a year who are avoiding evictions and foreclosures. This is making a real difference in people's lives. Now, home sharing is not new. It has existed for generations. What is new is home sharing over a digital platform, and it's that network power that gives these hosts the ability to generate those kinds of economics. But we recognize that as we move into this and transitions are not always easy. They can be challenging. New laws do need new things, or new things do need new laws. When we transition from the horse and buggy to the automobile, we needed to put in place new laws to deal with it, but still trying to get to some of the common sense policy objectives that people in cities wanted. And so to help with that, we have what's called the Airbnb Compact. It reflects our commitment to do our part. The first piece of that is sharing data. We have shared data with all sorts of cities that we're looking to partner with. We do it consistent with our privacy obligations to our hosts, but it helps cities understand what the platform looks like in their particular city and make decisions. The second, which I've touched on already, is paying our fair share of taxes. We want to pay the tourist tax, the hotel tax, whatever the equivalent thereof is in your particular cities. And then the third piece is understanding that every city is unique and every city is different, coming up with the particular solutions that solve your policy challenges that may exist in your city. You may have a vacation market, you may have a commercial market, you may want to look at primary homes. There's different ways that we can think about it, but we want to help you solve those solutions. And so, over the last year or so since we put out the policy compact, we've now done over 200 partnerships globally, with new ones coming on every day. Over the last couple weeks, even just here in the United States, we sort of covered all four corners with partnerships in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Arizona, South Carolina. And earlier this week was really, really excited that we did a partnership under the leadership of Mayor Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, where the city of Broad Shoulders broadly embraced home sharing. And there's a couple key components to it that I do believe are potential models as people look at this around the country. The first is a pass-through registration so that cities know who's doing this in their particular city and are able to track it. The second is we did a memorandum of understanding to help provide data and the tools that the cities need to be able to enforce their ordinance and their housing rules and laws. And then the third piece, and the third piece I am in particular really excited about, is that they're going to use the tax revenue from home sharing in Chicago to help fund the city's homelessness programs. I think that's a great way to spend the resources given the nature of that challenge. And as we head into the summer, we have two cities that both have showed that they're believe lands when it comes to home sharing. The two cities where the political conventions will be. Both Cleveland and Philadelphia have put in place forward-looking, progressive home sharing rules that will allow both cities to maximize the benefits of holding those conventions in their cities to make sure that they're really benefiting from the tourism dollars that are coming there. And so I very much look forward to seeing people over the course of today And over the course of the summer, potentially see a lot of folks in places like Philadelphia later this summer. Thank you very much. We want to do our part, and we very much appreciate being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I am pleased to announce that we've been sent a special greeting video from House Speaker Paul Ryan.
Hello, mayors. Thank you for giving me a minute of your time. I just want to run something by you. I know that all of you are working very hard every day to fight poverty in your cities. Well, the federal government should be able to help support what you're doing on the front lines. But right now, our approach is too top-down, it's too fragmented, and it's too slow. As part of a new plan to fight poverty, we propose improving our collaboration with states and local communities across the board. Because Washington should not try to supplant what you're doing, it should support what you're doing. This way, more resources will be devoted to what's actually helping people on the ground. We call this plan a Better Way, and you can get all the details by going to better.gop. I hope you'll give it a look. Thank you for your time.
Our organization very much looks forward to working with Speaker Ryan in the days ahead. We're also joined today by the President of the National League of Cities, Melody Colbert-Keene, council member from Joplin, Missouri. We work closely with the NLC on many key priorities for America's cities, including infrastructure investment, protecting tax-exempt municipal bonds, and e-fairness. I want to thank Melody for being with us today, along with Executive Director Clarence Anthony and Little Rock Mayor Mark Stodola, who is also NLC's second vice president. Please give our friends from the NLC a round of applause. So I can't quite believe that I am saying this, but this will be my last meeting as the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. The conference has made great progress over the past year, and I know that this momentum will continue under Mayor Cornett's and Landrieu's leadership, and of course, our CEO, Tom Cochran. Today, I am pleased to release another in our series of U.S. metro economy reports, which illustrates just how much our cities and our metro areas drive the national and global economies. I want to thank our Council on Metro Economies and IHS Global for their continued work on this effort. The report demonstrates that last year, U.S. metros contributed 96.5% of the nation's new jobs, 2.6 million, the most since the year 2000. And the news gets even more impressive. In 2016, cities and metro areas accounted for 99% of our nation's economic growth, equaling $578 billion. The report also reveals how important we are to the global economy. Just think of it. The New York metro area is now the 10th largest economy in the world, larger than Canada or South Korea. Los Angeles ranks 17th. Los Angeles ranks 17th, ahead of Indonesia. And Metro Chicago ranks 23rd, larger than Argentina. And many metros outweigh states in terms of their economic power. The three largest, New York, LA, and Chicago, each have economies larger than Ohio. Houston and Dallas are larger than Georgia and Virginia. These economic indicators are our best defense against questions and doubts. There can be no debate that the nation's future growth and continued economic recovery depends on the strength of our nation cities. That's why 8 months ago, I invited our leadership to come together in Baltimore to discuss the priorities that we as mayors should present to those running for president and for Congress. The platform that came out of these discussions was the Mayor's Compact for a Better America, a 2016 call to action. At the heart of this 16-point plan were two priorities: invest and protect, both crucial responsibilities that lawmakers must share for metro areas. We need to focus on investing in infrastructure projects that help keep cities livable. This includes our roads, our bridges, transit systems, airports, and broadband. But equally important are our drinking water and wastewater systems, our sources of clean and renewable energy, and our means of integrating new technology into city operations. We saw a positive step during my tenure when Congress approved and President Obama signed into law late last year the bipartisan FAST Act, which will provide funding for essential transportation projects over the next 5 years, with a more direct focus on metro areas and our priorities. We work closely with key committee chairs like Congressman Bill Schuster and Senator Jim Inhofe, as well as our friend and former Mayor, Transportation Secretary Anthony Foxx, to make this happen. But our work is far from over. Our organization will continue to call upon Washington to put forward the necessary resources to help repair America's D+ rated infrastructure and make sure that more of those resources in the future come directly to America's cities and metro areas. Investing in our infrastructure will both grow our economy and create good-paying jobs. As a nation, we must also prioritize keeping our residents safe. And as we know all too well, our cities are still threatened by crime, by terrorism and hate, both foreign and domestic. During my year as president, too many lives have been lost to violence of all kinds in our nation. In Orlando, we saw the devastation that can be caused by one man with a weapon of death. We stand with Orlando, and we stand with our friend Mayor Buddy Dyer as his great city recovers from the death and the suffering caused by such an act of hate and terror. Please join me in a moment of silence as we honor the victims and the families of those killed and injured in Orlando. Thank you. Mayor Dyer will address our meeting tomorrow afternoon. Our police officers, our residents, and our cities are on the front lines of all of these issues related to violence and homeland security, but we cannot stand alone. We must have a strong partnership with the federal government to ensure the safety of all people in our cities. That partnership must entail providing resources and training, and it must promote common sense gun safety laws. To work on this priority, representatives from the conference sat down with Attorney General Loretta Lynch. The main focus of our meeting was the spike in homicides and other violent crimes occurring in too many of our cities. We discussed what we as mayors can do to keep our constituents safe and what the federal government must do to help us to reduce gun violence in this nation. Meanwhile, cities must seek new ways to reconnect and uplift underserved communities. That's why I'm so proud of our work with the White House's My Brother's Keeper initiative, focused on helping boys and young men of color succeed. So many mayors in this room have undertaken MBK initiatives in their own cities. To continue the work we are doing to better serve communities of color, I have just appointed Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti to lead the new Latino Alliance of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. This alliance will serve as a forum for all mayors to address top policy concerns, political participation, and the changing demographics of our Latino communities in our nation's cities. Excuse me. Mayor Garcetti will host this initiative's inaugural meeting this afternoon. And as we go forth into 2016, we will take our priorities on Invest and Protect into both the Democratic and Republican conventions and all of our discussions with presidential candidates. But this will not be the first time that they have presented our priorities to those seeking the nation's highest office. This past January, we co-sponsored the 2016 Iowa Brown and Black Forum and presented our platform to all three Democratic candidates for president.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Bienvenidos. Tonight, for the first time in 2016, we gather all three Democratic contenders to ask them about their plans to lead America into the future.
The nation's mayors are in Des Moines to participate in events surrounding the Brown-Black Presidential Forum. Cities have created the growth that our country has seen.
The next president needs to have alignment with the cities. We call on the presidential candidates to join in with leaders in Congress and continue to make long-term investments in our infrastructure.
In 2008, Manny Diaz from Miami said, when we say infrastructure, we always talk about roads and bridges. Let's put water in there.
The expectation of local citizens is that when they turn on the tap, they've got clean water.
We should start studying what investments we need to make in communities to help individuals and families move forward.
A new agenda for America's cities.
The future of our country rests on the future of America's cities.
In America, it's the city level that hires the police. If you don't have a safe city, you don't have a city.
When I was mayor of the city of Burlington, we worked to kind of initiate community policing, where cops were out on the street getting to know people.
What are they going to do about immigration reform?
We have to be sensitive and humane in the application of our laws.
I believe that the enduring symbol of our country is not the barbed wire fence. It's the Statue of Liberty.
I want to incentivize more investment in the most disinvested communities in our country.
I'm going to invest in education and jobs. Put the kids back to work.
There is a major role that the next administration can play in making us come to the table around the country, have these critical conversations.
Local government is where the economy is going to grow. It's where the jobs are going to grow. And we have some needs. We want to hear some answers.
There's no us, there's no them. There's just one United States of America. We have to work to bring people together.
If you really care about the financial health of this country and the well-being of its people, then you should care about cities and you should care about working with mayors. I was hoping they were going to get a photo of me in a coat because it was cold in Iowa. You just can't really get that sense from that video, but it was a lot of fun. So over the course of my presidency, the conference has worked tirelessly to bring attention to many other key issues, and we will continue to advocate for them in the upcoming year. We have worked closely with Flint Mayor Karen Weaver to help spread awareness about the lead contamination that has afflicted her city's water supply, and we continue to do everything that we can do to bring resources to Flint that are needed to recover and rebuild their water infrastructure. As a part of this long-term project, I appointed Tom Cochran and former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin to lead a delegation to Flint on several occasions to better understand what the conference can be doing to get Flint the resources and the national attention that it desperately needs.
A water crisis in Flint, Michigan has exposed nearly 100,000 people to lead poisoning.
3, 2, 1.
In April 2014, Flint switched from Detroit's water supply to save money.
My youngest would tell me, Mom, it's yellow and it's a filmy, gross, foamy thing, and it would smell like open sewer.
It was very scary to see the levels of lead that were coming out of her tap water.
We stand in solidarity with our fellow Flint Mayor Karen Weaver in her time of crisis.
Did you stop drinking it?
I didn't start drinking it because I had concerns about the Flint River water.
Now, this is coming out of a sink at a hospital. How did this happen?
Our infrastructure is very old.
Across the country, we have aging infrastructure, and what's happened in Flint could happen anywhere.
Highly corrosive river water flowed through the city's lead pipes, leaching lead and other dangerous metals into the water supply.
Support for the city of Flint as representatives from the U.S. Conference of Mayors stood with Flint Mayor Karen Weaver today.
We have come to Flint to let everyone know that our organization will put the full force of the United States Conference of Mayors on Congress, on White House, on the President to support the funds that must be sent to Flint.
This is an extraordinary crisis with national implications.
We found the worst lead and water contamination that I have seen in 25 years.
I built this place with my tax. Stand up, be heard.
This is a topic that comes up in community meetings. It comes up across the country.
The occurrences in Flint raise the issue of not
things that are just happening in that part of the United States of America, but it is the canary in the coal mine.
Pipes are ruined. It's not bad water. It's that they've destroyed the infrastructure.
It's a twofold kind of situation. We have an infrastructure crisis, but we have a public health crisis.
In September 2015, independent researchers discovered alarming levels of lead in children's blood.
We have kids that are going to need lifelong services and supports.
Yeah,
so how do you
because
put a
a lot
cost
of
to that?
the effects from the lead won't even start showing for 5 years.
Exactly.
I say tonight, as I have before, I'm sorry and I will fix it.
Then he says that he has money put up for a rainy day fund. Well, it's pouring.
We cannot let this story go away.
We're going to continue to press the presidential candidates to recognize the D-plus infrastructure we have.
Stephanie Rollins Blake has deployed all resources and expertise to help us here in the city of Flint.
We have to speak with one voice, not just at the municipal level, but at the federal level about the need to invest in our infrastructure.
The city is doing it.
Yeah.
Money they're scrounging together themselves.
Right. About 98% of all the spending on water and sewer comes from local government.
I have felt such support from the people that I've met with, from the mayors that I've met with all around the country. They have been reaching out, looking at how they can support what's going on in Flint and help us get the resources that we need.
I think it's a mistake to read urban and democratic as synonymous. We have many Republican mayors across this country that are fighting for those same infrastructure dollars.
We are an organization of mayors. When these things happen, mayors get on it.
I submit to you that we are not disposable people. Well, hi.
Welcome.
Hi. How are you?
I'm all right.
You got your Flint Lives Matter shirt on. Thank you. Well, I see your water here, and I saw your recyclable bags full of bottles.
So we just wanted to see how you guys are doing.
My son here, Charles Knox III, any touch of the water, wash hands, anything, his eczema flares up. And once his eczema becomes inflamed, those cysts start forming around his body.
So how do you deal with this as a family?
We're toting the water, heating it up.
So having to do that, how much water do you go through in a day or in a week?
We pick up 8 cases a day, every day.
What about laundry and clothes?
I wash my clothes. That next day, I lift the lid of my washer machine, and it smelled like sewage.
Wow.
Those things are horrifying.
One of the things we've still been stressing to families is if they have kids that are a certain age or under a certain age, we want them to continue with the bottled water.
Appreciate it, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, baby! How are you?
We are in desperate straits.
Hi, Tom Compton with U.S. Conference of Mayors.
Nice to meet you. I'm Carrie Weber.
So were you physically tested, you and your husband?
Yeah, my husband and my youngest daughter are both lead poisoned.
When was
Whatever.
this? Was this when this thing started?
This was actually June of 15. We didn't know about the lead in water yet.
Oh, my goodness.
So we had no clue. And my husband in August had an eye stroke, lost about a third of the vision in his right eye. Didn't know about the lead still. But see, our water was never discolored. It's taken this family by storm.
Yeah.
We're all in counseling at this point because a 16-year-old now, the sound of running water sets her into a panic attack. I mean, she can't breathe, she gets pale, and it's just the sound of running water.
And see, and that's what we've talked about, the mental health toll it takes on the family.
I thought we were okay.
Yeah.
And we're very low income because my husband and I are both disabled. So we couldn't go out and buy water.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you doing?
Well, the real, tricky thing is because the water was not discolored.
We were hearing a lot of people complain, my water's brown, my water's orange, and we're looking at ours come out nice and clear.
I know it bothers me as an individual when I see people come here and drink the water and leave and say, well, the water's good. People that were paid to protect you poisoned you. That's what it amounts to.
Yeah. and then hide and lied and covered it up. I mean, my God.
When you really bring it down, it's about the people in this city.
Right.
And that's what you see in this home.
People are tired, they're angry, and they're scared.
You have to have a certain amount of rage.
I have a huge amount of rage.
It's been a strain because we've been doing it for about a year and a half. I'm getting to the point where I'm just, I'm tired.
It's powerful. Mayors, please join me in giving Flint Mayor Karen Weaver a round of applause for all that she has done and continues to do for her city. Thank you. From the very local environmental crisis in Flint to the global economic crisis of climate change, the Conference of Mayors has remained on the front lines to protect our cities and our residents from man-made catastrophes. In December, we brought our work on this issue to Paris as part of the climate talks that yielded the historic COP21 agreement. Our leadership discussed the vital role that cities play in promoting sustainability and mitigating the effects of global climate change. We had the opportunity to participate in the Climate Summit for local leaders hosted by Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo at Paris City Hall. We participated in a day of action at the UN venue where days later the world reached a landmark climate compact. We also gathered U.S. mayors in Paris at the residence of our good friend, Ambassador Jane Hartley. There, we celebrated the release of the report marking 10 years of progress since the Congress first adopted the Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement. Today, I am pleased to announce that we have formed a new initiative between the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the Council on Climate and Energy Solutions called the Alliance for a Sustainable Future. The Alliance will address the role mayors and businesses can and should play in the development and the implementation of the EPA's Clean Power Plan, one of the cornerstones to achieve our national commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I have appointed Santa Fe Mayor Javier Gonzalez to lead the Alliance on behalf of the mayors. We look forward to collaborating with the Council on Climate and Energy Solutions, whose president is former EPA Administrator Bob Perciasepe, who has a long history of working in cities and with the Conference of Mayors. Another issue where mayors have led and showcased best practices is technology and innovation. This past March, we also took a delegation of 16 mayors to Austin, Texas for the annual South by Southwest Interactive Festival. In collaboration with Austin Mayor Steve Adler, we hosted the festival's first ever Mayor's Track. It was an incredible opportunity for the nation's mayors to showcase technological advances that they have made in their cities. It also provided a glimpse at the future of smart cities with demos such as Google's self-driving car and a micro-housing unit called Casita. Another of the programs that I'm proud to have worked on during my time as president is Play Ball. In 2015, we instituted Play Ball with Major League Baseball to engage young people in the sport and to promote youth athletics in a way that is fun and inclusive. In our first summer alone, we oversaw this program in 125 cities across 34 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. Last year, I was excited to help bring this program to my hometown of Baltimore and to get a chance to engage with young players.
Great job, everyone! Great job!
Baltimore is a baseball town. We believe in our O's. As president of the Conference of Mayors and a hometown Baltimore girl, to have Major League Baseball here, to support our young people, it's just a dream come true.
One of the purposes of Play Ball is to energize communities, to see kids out here having fun with the game. We have 125 commitments from mayors around the country. The U.S. Conference of Mayors gives us reach in communities that we just don't have by ourselves.
125 cities have come together, and so they're doing events and they're bringing kids and young people like you together.
There's so many different ways that we connect with Major League Baseball. We're having a great time. We're learning some wonderful skills. We're community building, we're skill building. The important life lessons. Beautiful day in an incredible way. That was a lot of fun. So one of our meetings, we showed a video, and I think it was Landry was getting an award, and they showed him, he was pumping out push-ups, got his gun showing and everything. I was like, that's really nice. I want you to know, I hit a ball out there, and it was a good one. I don't know how it got edited out of the video, but Tom is my witness, right, Tom? He saw it. All right. Thank you. This spring, our second year of play ball, and we continue to build upon last year's successes and to promote this program in cities. Also this spring, we had our first ever mission to the Persian Gulf nation of Qatar. There we discussed issues ranging from growing metro economies to infrastructure and development to promoting a knowledge-based economy to the future of diplomacy. And last month, we took a delegation to Cuba as a part of a larger effort to forge a new bond between America's cities and the island nation. We were hosted by the nation's foreign ministry, and we discussed ways to reduce the obstacles that still remain between the U.S. and Cuba. We also visited some of Cuba's most important political, technological, and cultural sites, including the National Art School, the Center of Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, the Latin American School of Medicine, and Mariel Port. It was the first conference first U.S. Conference of Mayors visit to Cuba since 1978, and we hope to continue our relationship with the Cuban government into the future. And of course, in January, we held our annual winter meeting in Washington, and we were honored that President Obama hosted us in the White House, as he has done so many times before. President Obama has been a great partner to America's mayors, and we thank him sincerely for his leadership and service on so many critical issues. First Lady Michelle Obama also came to our winter meeting to discuss the priority of ending veterans' homelessness, and I was pleased to appoint a new task force on this issue that is working closely with the First Lady's office. I'm proud of the work that we are doing with the Obama administration and Congress on these priorities, and many others, such as fixing our nation's criminal justice system, reducing the spread of opioid abuse and overdoses, combating the spread of the Zika virus, and securing the passage of the transatlantic partnership in conjunction with trade adjustment legislation that will enable cities' economies to grow while also helping workers to adapt in the changing job market. I was told when I first joined the conference that you get out of it what you put in. And I've certainly put in a lot, but I've gotten out so much more. I've been a member of many organizations in my life, none more personally and professionally gratifying than the Conference of Mayors. I've learned so much from my peers and have benefited from their support and their guidance when I've needed it the most. I've been able to do great work that has benefited my city and cities around this country. I've met many interesting people and have made some lifelong friends. For all of that, I will be forever grateful to this organization. My term as mayor will end in December, and I will miss many things about being mayor of my hometown. Being a member of this organization will definitely be one of them, even though I heard that you will take my business council membership dues on the next day after I am out of office. But I know that the conference will continue to be a force for improving the quality of life in our cities long into the future. It has been an honor to serve the conference as its president, and I am proud of all that we have accomplished together. If I can ever be of assistance to this organization or to any of you personally in my private life, all you have to do is ask. Thank you all for everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I told Mayor Cornett when he's president, maybe they won't shortchange him and they'll put his home run. See, it went from a hit to a home run now. His home run in the video. Okay, so now I'm very pleased that we have been sent a video greeting from the new Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan.
Thank you for inviting me to address this year's United States Conference of Mayors. I'm sorry I can't be with you today in Indianapolis, but I'm grateful for the chance to send you this message of support as you discuss the many challenges and opportunities facing cities across America and the rest of the world. I'd also like to take this opportunity in the wake of the hideous and cowardly attack in Orlando to say that London stands shoulder to shoulder with you against this hatred and bigotry, and in solidarity with you as you promote our shared values of tolerance and liberty. It is a true honour and privilege to be elected as Mayor of London. I've been amazed at the message of support I've had from around the world, including many mayors attending your conference today. I would like to thank you for your warm wishes. My election as Mayor of this great city was a real victory of hope over fear. I'm proud and humbled that Londoners chose unity over division and rejected the politics of fear offered during the campaign. I hope that it will be a lesson for others that this type of politics does not work and will be rejected, particularly in open, diverse and tolerant societies. As I get down to work, my burning ambition for London is ensuring that all Londoners get the opportunities that this great city gave to me, allowing me to go from a council housing estate where I grew up to becoming Mayor of London. I look forward to sharing ideas with you to help deliver new and innovative ways for priorities we share, from building more affordable homes to delivering a modern, affordable transport system, to tackling air pollution and promoting greater social integration. I'm also determined that London plays a leading role in combating the common challenges facing cities around the world, such as fighting terrorism and tackling climate change. We can and should be working together to take on these big challenges, and I look forward to working with you in the weeks, months and years ahead. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great conference.
Thank you, everybody.
So as she is walking on the stage, it is now my pleasure.
Thank you. How are you? Nice to see you. Hello there, Mr. Mayor. How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you, and congratulations. I already said hello to you. Hey, thank you. Thank you, dear. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
All right.
Quick hello.
Good. Is it still morning? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here.
It is my pleasure to welcome to the stage someone who is no stranger to the U.S. Conference of Mayors. She is an incredibly distinguished guest, distinguished part of the Obama administration. Senior advisor to President Barack Obama, Valerie Jarrett. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I feel like many people already know what you do, but I just have to say a little bit that Valerie oversees the Offices of Public Engagement and Intergovernmental Affairs and chairs the Council on Women and Girls, who held an incredible event last week, the United State of Women. Hopefully you'll do it again.
Well, I don't know if we'll do it again while the president is in office, but we do hope that this becomes an annual event, and whoever succeeds him will appreciate the importance of focusing on women and girls.
It was powerful.
Thank you.
It was an amazing collection of women in politics, in business, and it was just a wonderful reflection of President Obama's priorities. So
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
All right, so I'm not going to go into your whole background because, you know, I'm trying my hardest, mayors, not to have a big fangirl moment right here because I'm a big...
Take your time.
Valerie, I could go on and on and on, but I do know that you want to talk a little bit about the president's statement on gun violence.
Well, I do, but first, if I could, I just want to say thank you. I began my career in public service working for the mayor of Chicago, first Harold Washington, then Mayor Sawyer, then Mayor Daley, and I think I learned so much about what makes our country strong by serving at the local level of government. And so part of my responsibility that I have enjoyed so much is being responsible for being your gateway into the White House, the mayors, our nation's mayors. And so I want to thank you, and you heard from Madam Mayor, a whole list of areas in which we've worked together, from TPP to raising the minimum wage to encouraging both in the public and the private sector to focus on paid sick time, paid sick days, passing local and supporting state and federal laws, sensible laws on gun violence. And I wanted to start, even though I know I'm going to be spending most of my time speaking with you about criminal justice reform, I did want to focus on guns. And I know it's something that's been top of mind for the nation's mayors. And we just saw a couple days ago in Washington, Congressman Lewis leading other members of the House to spend the night on the floor of the House out of complete and utter frustration for Congress in both the House and the Senate, demonstrating an unwillingness to take just sensible steps to keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. Just 8 days ago, I was in Orlando with your colleague, Mayor Buddy Dwyer, and met with the families of so many of the victims of the largest mass shooting in our nation's history in Orlando. And what's clear is that there needs to be a groundswell of people who speak up about the importance of putting in place reasonable restrictions. And if we do that, we will keep our cities and our nation safer. And so, right? We lose 30,000 Americans a year to gun violence, 2/3 of them from suicide. And so we have to figure out a way of keeping guns out of the hands. We have to have sensible background checks. We have to invest in our mental health, and the president has proposed an additional $500 million to go to mental health to ensure that people are diagnosed who are a threat to themselves or to others. We need to make sure that guns are smart. And we always say, if you can put your thumb on your phone and only you can access it, why can't you put your thumb on a trigger and only a law-abiding person who has sold it legally can shoot the gun? That's just common sense to us. So we called on Congress to act. In their failure, the president, over the course of the years since Sandy Hook, has taken a number of steps through executive action, but that's not the comprehensive solution that we need from Congress. And so I just know how important this issue is to all of you, and I just wanted to let you know the president is there with you, and we are optimistic that when the American people engage and care about this issue as much as the NRA cares about this issue, we'll make progress.
Thank you very much. This is, as you mentioned, Mayor Dyer, the recent mass shootings have hit all of us very hard to watch our fellow mayor in such pain as he has to comfort so many families. I want to thank you and the Obama administration for your leadership. And my hope is that as a conference of mayors, a bipartisan organization that is committed to working across the aisle, that maybe this is the organization, this can be the catalyst for common sense reform, and we can once again be the leaders that our nation needs. So
I think that would be terrific. We need you. We need your help. We need your voices. And on one final note on the gun violence, and that is, and I don't need to tell you this, but the media and the nation focuses on these mass shootings. But every single day on the streets of my hometown of Chicago, on the streets of New Orleans, on the streets of all of our cities, none of us are immune to this. Families lose their loved ones, or they are devastated from the damage of gun violence. And so it feels like a mass shooting if it happens in your community or in your family, whether it's one person or whether it's 49.
Absolutely, and I don't want to get into too much of the criminal justice reform talk without taking a second to thank you for something else, and that is Jerry Abramson.
Jerry.
He is
Jerry,
one of
stand
us.
up so everybody can see you.
I think it shows that President Obama, and you get it, when you put someone who is one of us in charge of being the liaison between mayors and the administration. So thank you all.
Well, Jerry made a huge sacrifice in leaving his wife and family and roots in Louisville and moving to DC, and that sacrifice, I hope he feels, has been well worth it, because he certainly has made an enormous difference during his time in the White House. So thank you for all the support you give Jerry and his entire team.
Thank you very much. So I know you want to talk broadly about criminal justice reform, and then we'll get into what that means for America's cities and how mayors can help you really push this forward. We know that there's a lot that is happening at the local level, but we need to see more on the national level.
Yeah.
So where are we?
All right, well, first of all, just some statistics. We spend $80 billion a year on criminal justice. We have less than 5% of the world's population, but we have 25% of the world's prisoners. 2.2 million people are in prison. Each year, 11 million are in our county jails. They stay an average of 23 days, yet only 5% of them are ultimately convicted and sent on to serve time in prison. It's unsustainable. A third of the Department of Justice's budget goes to support the Bureau of Prisons. Just imagine what we could do with those resources at the state and local level in the event we didn't have to spend them on mass incarceration. So the way the president looks at this is really in three buckets. One is, what can we do in the community to ensure that people don't get caught up in the system in the first place? And that's everything from quality early childhood education to reducing the number of suspensions and expulsions in school, to breaking this school to prison pipeline, breaking this sexual assault to prison pipeline, ensuring that every young child who wakes up with that twinkle in their eye and desire to learn has an opportunity to learn a viable alternative to a life of crime. The second bucket is, what are we going to do to reform our existing system in what we call the courtroom? And we'll talk a little bit, I hope, later about the legislation that's currently being considered in Washington. But right now, we know we have mandatory minimum sentences, particularly for nonviolent drug offenders, that are too high. We hear from judges all the time who say they wish they had the discretion to look at an individual case and figure out what to do, tailoring the punishment to the crime. And so that's another bucket. And then what are we going to do with people while they are incarcerated to ensure that they have the skills training, the education, the mental health treatment, the drug treatment that they need, so when they leave, they can re-enter society and not simply get caught in the revolving door. And then when they leave, we have to focus on successful reentry. And one way that you all have been helpful to us is encouraging people to sign our Fair Chance Business Pledge, which is equivalent to banning the box, so that you don't ask people at the front end of the application process if you've been arrested or incarcerated. You let them impress you first. And it's been heartening to see over the last 6 months how many employers have been willing to openly stand up and say, yes, we recognize our responsibility to help people get back on their feet, but also importantly, that there's talent being left on the sidelines if we do not extend a hand and encourage job opportunities within our organization. So those are the 3 buckets where we're focusing a lot of time and attention. And then in addition to that, the president has been commuting sentences of those. Over 350 people I think he's commuted, and more than the last several presidents put together. But that's at the back end. What we'd really like to do is to ensure that we keep people from going into the prison in the first place. And then the final thing I would mention is a lot of effort that the president directed the Attorney General to do around solitary confinement. All of the evidence shows that particularly young people who have been in solitary confinement have long-term traumatic effects. The psychological impact of being in isolation, particularly on vulnerable populations, is something we have to change. And so at the federal level, we are reforming our solitary confinement dramatically, ending it for minors and substantially reducing it for adults only when absolutely necessary, and certainly not in the last period of time before people re-enter society, because it's nearly impossible to go from solitary confinement and have a successful re-entry back into a community.
So a few months ago, I think it was back in November, the conference took a position on the legislation, and we thought that it would, a lot of us were optimistic. You know, this was a time where Democrats, Republicans eagerly stood together, thinking that there would be action at the federal level on this legislation. And here we are, it's late June, and we're still pushing. I know the president often says he is in the second half of the 4th quarter, and he's pushing every day for progress. I hope you can talk a little bit about the strategies that he's using to get some progress on this issue and how mayors can help.
Well, you are absolutely right. This is one of the few issues where there is strong bipartisan support. In a town such as Washington, where there's very little bipartisan support for much of anything. And so we have the good news. Both the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House and the Senate, both Republicans, strongly supported. Chairman Grassley in the Senate, Chairman Goodlatte in the House. The Senate has already passed a meaningful bill that reduces mandatory minimums for nonviolent drug offenders. It allows for resources to go back into helping people who are incarcerated so that they can hit the ground running. There are reforms for juveniles in there as well. The House bill is very similar. They're still working on the juvenile piece, but the rest of it has moved through the House Judiciary Committee. They took a strategy of doing multiple smaller bills. The Senate did one big bill, but there is enormous overlap between the House and the Senate. You have those two chairmen who have developed bipartisan support among the members of the Judiciary Committee, and it's everything from a very conservative Senator Lee in Utah to a very progressive Cory Booker from New Jersey, and all working together in what I tell you is a very constructive way. The outside advocates are also supportive, everyone from the ACLU to Koch Industries and Grover Norquist, people who are libertarian and fiscally conservative, working together with progressives. And it has been it's been just the way government at the federal level should work. And of course, you all experience it on the ground at the city level, where partisan politics really gets in the way of doing what's in the best interest of your citizens. That's the good news. The bad news is, as you said, we've been making all this progress, and why hasn't it been finished? And I will say that Speaker Ryan has said publicly that it is his intent to move it forward, and that's very helpful. We haven't heard a similar comment yet from Senator McConnell, but certainly with someone who has a seniority as Chairman Grassley has in the Senate Judiciary Committee, the fact that his committee overwhelmingly supports it should bode well, but it still hasn't happened. And our view is simply this: we can't let the fact that we are in an election year get in the way of doing what's in the best interest of the American people. The goal here is to keep our communities safer. We believe that the bills that are being considered will do so, and also recognize the fact that in America, we want to make sure that as many people as possible have the opportunity to be law-abiding citizens, and that we not fill up our jails with people and our prisons with people who just need a second chance and some help and some diversion, many strategy of which I know you are putting in place in your cities and counties. That's what they need, and it is ridiculous to lock people up when there's an alternative. So I'm optimistic, but I will say the clock is running, and there is no good reason why they haven't moved forward, other than politics.
And we don't play that here at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So one of the reasons why this issue gained bipartisan traction was we know that reform will help us save money in the federal prison system. But we also know, as you talked about a second ago, we also have to make room for second chances and reentry. So I'm wondering if there are any provisions in the current legislation that is being considered that will boost funding for our nation's reentry efforts.
Yes, and the president has also included it in his budget. We want to make sure that we have resources for reentry. And just yesterday, both the Department of Education and the Department of Labor announced new initiatives that they're taking. Department of Education for 12,000 people who would be eligible for Pell Grants, which is just tremendous. We can help people get the education that they need while they're incarcerated, again, so they can hit the ground running. And it also, the Department of Labor has funds in there for job training so that we can ensure that people who have the education but need to be tooled to the jobs that are in the marketplace have those resources available. And we know that if the legislation is successful, just talking about the Bureau of Prisons budget, there will be dollars that will be available for the state and local level. So the legislation does in fact contain resources to help at the state and local level, because we know that you need to be partners in this with us.
I know that you have experience at the local level. I know that's where you got your start in public service. And we know that there are many things that mayors can do and have done to help work to reduce sentences, to help individuals who are living with addiction get into treatment. I know that this is something that the Obama administration is very passionate about. What else do you think mayors can do to push common sense reforms at the local level?
Well, I think it's helpful for you to be real partners with the county and with the state, and certainly with us, and to highlight the best practices. People like to support what works. And I know in all of your communities, you've got great examples of people who participated in a diversion program, who went on to be successful and contribute to society. And helping highlight those stories, I think, would be very helpful to us. We have to get away from this kind of legacy sense of being tough on crime. We have to be smart on crime. And everything we're trying to do demonstrates that our cities and states will be safer. I'll give you one example that I was just speaking with Mayor Garcetti about this morning. The former Secretary of Homeland Security, who I know you all know, Janet Napolitano, now runs the largest university system in the country, the UC system. And she's taken the position that, analogous to banning the box for jobs, that we should also not discriminate against people who have been incarcerated or been arrested, and admitting them to colleges and universities. And the UC system has had the practice of not asking at the front end of the college application process about whether or not somebody has been arrested or convicted, and that it has had no impact on crime on campus. And so her credibility and her voice on this issue is important. All of you have colleges and universities in your communities, in your cities, and so I would encourage you to work with them as well to figure out how we can help people who are incarcerated and then help them as soon as they leave not face the barriers of entry. We were in Newark last year with President Obama, with Mayor Baraka, and we visited a reentry program, and the president met this amazing young man, but he told this story of having spent 10 years in prison And when he gets released, he's given a bus ticket back to a community that is really no longer home for him. His family had dissipated. He only had a friend who let him crash on his couch. He had no job. He had no identification. The only ID he had was his prison identification, which is not the best calling card for a job, right? And he didn't know how to use a computer because the internet had taken off while he was incarcerated, so he couldn't even look for a job in the way that we all look for jobs today. And thanks to a federal judge that the president appointed, a U.S. attorney that the president appointed, and a really, really amazing probation officer, they enabled him to get the license, training and the license he needed to be an EMT and roam around and try to help serve the community. Well, what could be more constructive than that? And so when you tell those stories about these incredible people who have paid their debt to society and deserve a second chance, and when they get the second chance and we remove those barriers that are an impediment to that second chance, that helps make our case. And each and every one of you knows of those stories. So share them in your local media, share them in the national press, and lift up those voices so that we can remove the stigma and give people that second chance they deserve.
Well, I could sit here and talk to you all day. I know that as a woman in politics, I just want you to know, when I said I was a fangirl, I really meant it. I was thinking to myself at the last week at the summit, and I don't know if you saw it, the First Lady was interviewed by Michelle Obama, and it was a very comfortable conversation because, you know, I think they're friends. But I said I can't handle much more of this because I was like, I'm going to hyperventilate. I was like, I'm sitting here next to Valerie Jarrett.
That's very kind of you. Well, you know how much respect I have for you, and my goodness, you went through one of the worst tragedies in our nation, and you were in the spotlight round the clock every single day, and you never lost your grace, and you were truly grace under fire, and I think our nation owes you a debt of gratitude for your service as well.
You're so kind. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much for your leadership. I really did meet him. I'm a big fan. All right, so this concludes the morning session. We have the following meetings next: environment, jobs, education, and the workforce, metro economies, and the aging task force. And then I will see you at our city livability luncheon in this room at 12:30. We are now adjourned.